computer connection craps out. I don't know what to do about that, and I can't control that. But today I thought we could learn about ERA estimators and Statcast sliders. Um, I've been doing a very, very poor job of sticking to topics and I think presenting them in a palatable way because some of these things, I've been learning for many, many years now. And I think that things are simple and they're not really. So, um, let's see. I think the first thing that we'll do is look at Zach Wheeler's Fangraphs page, and you'll see, if you look over his career, um, 3.5 ERA, 3.5 basically FIP or FIP, and 3.7 xFIP. And so I think he serves as a good example, or maybe he serves as a bad example, but I'm going to use him as an example nonetheless. Um, so I think we can kind of use him, to explain the pros and cons of each ERA estimator, and also the faulty assumptions that they make. Also, excuse my throat. I think it's acid reflux. I just ate some Tums, so hopefully those set in over time. But essentially, we all hopefully know what ERA is. And the assumption that ERA makes is that the pitcher assumes control of all outcomes. And we know that that is an extremely faulty assumption because hitters don't. People have to field the ball. There are hitters at the plate, it's just not very sound. So, oftentimes, there's never going to be an ERA estimator that's R squared is 100, or that perfectly can estimate ERA, but our goal is to get as close as we can. A lot of estimators have gotten close, depending on what you're looking at. Um, and I think, in the early, I think 2010s, FIP and XFIP gained popularity because they're pretty useful and they don't have that many out or inputs. So you can look at the FIP formula and you can see that the inputs are, I mean, obviously like innings pitched, and there's a FIP constant, but it's probably the most simple ERA estimator there is. It's home runs, walks, and hit batters and strikeouts. And for the most part, this does a really good job um, of talking about what ERA a pitcher deserved. So the best use for FIP is for past performance. It's basically saying what ERA did the pitcher deserve looking backwards. And a lot of people use it to project forward to predict what their ERA will be moving forward. Excuse me. But again, that's a faulty assumption mainly because um, home runs are very noisy. So actually, and with Wheeler's, well, he's done a pretty good job of continuing it. But you'll oftentimes see guys break out. So Wheeler in 2018, most people will have a home run per nine around 1-ish, and that's probably closer to 1.1 or 1.2 nowadays. Wheeler broke out, and his home runs per nine was 0.69, which is very nice. um, that you can see here, that's one of the best home runs per fly ball rates he's ever had. Um, that could be luck. That could be, um, facing bad competition, whatever it is. He did not allow very many home runs. So his FIP said that he was very, very good. And he was very good. But his XFIP Which let me pull up that formula. XFIP is very similar, obviously, but in the spot where FIP takes into account home runs, XFIP assumes a league average home run per fly ball rate, which again, faulty assumption. Um, the idea here is that home runs are very noisy, and that's true. They can be difficult for pitchers to control, but pitchers do have control over how many fly balls they give up, how many home runs, which I'm sure I'll get into later. And so essentially in 2018, FIP really liked that Wheeler didn't give up very many home runs, but XFIP didn't like that he had, at that point, a career low by far in terms of home runs per fly balls. So um, the assumption that XFIP makes is similar to FIP. It assumes that pitchers have control over their strikeouts and walks, but it also assumes that home runs will regress to league average. And that's not always true. So FIP, even though people like to use it, moving forward, and I think that is becoming more and more rare, um, is best used as what is this guy's FIP right now? That is what he's deserved so far. XFIP is best used at um, predicting future performance. So I mentioned R square earlier. This is a tweet from Alex Chamberlain 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, in which the closer to one, the better the correlation. And so, in terms of how FIP correlates with same season ERA, is very high, which makes sense because um, it's looking at all of the outcomes that happened. It's looking at strikeouts that happened, it's looking at walks that happened, and it's looking at home runs that happened. XFIP is a little worse because it's looking at a lot of outcomes that didn't happen. And then Sierra, and I'll get into this in a second, but you'll find that Sierra in general correlates very similarly to XFIP because they have a lot of similar assumptions. And then CSW, I mean, I would not use CSW to predict ERA, but each their own. And then if you look at next year ERA, Sierra is kind of king, I suppose, but it's followed very closely by XFIP. And like I said, people like to use FIP for predicting ERA sometimes, but CSW is better at next year ERA prediction than FIP is. So it's really really bad practice um, to use these metrics in ways that they're not supposed to be used. And this shows that if you're trying to look at deserved ERA same season, you want to use FIP. If you want to look at the next two seasons, you're looking at Sierra and XFIP. I prefer XFIP over Sierra. The reason why is that, like I said, Sierra and XFIP have very similar assumptions, but Sierra has much more complex interactions. So, like, let's look at the formula for XFIP. It's very, very simple. It's similar to FIP. Sierra is impossibly complicated. So many inputs. There's strikeouts, there's walks, there's there's batted balls, and I'll pull it. Gets over Sierra. Um, and it's also very weird because the Fangraphs glossary page explains it, but um, it obviously weights them differently. But also, as in here, so strikeouts are a powerful input, more so than FIP. Walks are not a good input, but if you don't allow too many of them, they're not that bad. So as far as I understand it, the relationship is a little bit exponential. So the more you give up, the more disastrous it is for your Sierra. And then balls in play are complicated, which is true. But now that we have Statcast and Hawkeye data, or data, it's not as complicated. So, um, just alone because of the complexity of this equation versus xFIP, and given that at least in this sample, it only accounts for 0.01 of the variance in next year ERA. Sierra is kind of needlessly complicated, and also, um, unless you have a customized Fangraphs page, it's not listed up here. So if you want to go find Sierra, it's down here. So, and it's inherent in the name, but Sierra is attempting to look at a pitcher's skills. How skilled is the pitcher, and how does that, relate to their ERA? So I don't really use Sierra. Back when I was like an edgelord in like the early 2010s, I was like, oh, I use Sierra because it's better and more complex, whatever. And that's bad praxis. The last one, which I don't know what the correlation is, but Connor Kirkin, I believe, now works for the Astros in their R&D department. Developed a metric called PCRA, which I don't know what it stands for. Yeah, I'm not even gonna try. Predictive. I don't know what the C is. And the assumption there is extremely similar to FIP. It is that pitchers control strikeouts and walks, but instead of home runs, it says that they control barrels, which is true, to an extent. Um, it depends on pitch type, pitch location, whatever, but it is better than xFIP and Sierra for projecting future ERA. So, if you would like to look at deserved ERA, it's pretty much as simple as using FIP over the others, and then you can use xFIP and and Sierra, whatever, to contextualize if you want, or you can use stats like xWOBACON or xWOBA. But it's important to know what the biases of each statistic is as you're using them. And so, yeah, for projecting forward, I would use xFIP and I would use FIP to look at past ERA. And just to show, I actually didn't check this beforehand. Um, Thank you, Nick. PCRA stands for Portending Catapulted Rampant Armadillos. Um, it's true. I didn't check this before, but generally speaking, if you're looking at a pitcher's xFIP for any given season, you can just look at his Sierra, and it's probably the same. So here, Zach Wheeler's xFIP is 284. Not true. Because his xFIP was so good. Let's see. Last year, 407. They're kind of close. 376, 406, 420. I will say that because of the pitcher Wheeler is, um, he's more likely to have a lower Sierra than xFIP, because Sierra likes that he induces a lot of ground balls. He doesn't walk anyone. He strikes out a lot of guys. Um, so I think for the most part, what you're looking at there is uh, that he gives up, and he gives up a lot of pitcher friendly contact. Um, and CRA is able to account for that, whereas XFIP is not. But Wheeler's also a not very good example because um, XFIP is making a very broad claim, uh, and Wheeler falls on kind of the margins or the extreme of his skill set. Most guys will fall around league average in terms of batted ball contact. Wheeler um, is a barrel's darling, and I'll pull that up in a second, but I need to drink some. Let's see. um, and I still haven't decided like what it is that these few pitchers do. Um, because it's going to be like Noah Syndergaard and Wheeler. Um, Part of it is that they throw hard. Part of it is that they locate pretty well, and their pitches move a lot. So there's a lot of different factors. So what I'm doing is going back a couple seasons. I'm pulling up xWOBA, but I'm sorting by batted balls, so it becomes xWOBACON or xWOBA on contact. And then let's see. I want it to ascend. And how many outcomes? 500? Sound good? Everyone likes that? The best? Um, we'll see what that pulls up. But it should be... I forgot to sort by... So DeGrom is one of the best. I'm going to filter that one more time. Which should be unsurprising. DeGrom throws very hard, can command his pitches, has several pitches. That portends positive batted ball contact. I hate this. Okay. I think this is just normal xWOBA. Don't do this at home, kids. I need to probably... The font is so buggy. That is obviously not xWOBACON. A good, like, league average. Yeah, this is more like it. So, Freddie Peralta. And I hope that this is the right query. I would buy it. Freddie Peralta has a wipeout slider, and yeah, these are all hit into play. So I guess CC, you can see Syndergaard here, you can see Wheeler here, Wade Miley, which makes some sense. He's a pitcher who induces a lot of unexpected movement. So if you look at his movement versus X movement, they're very disparate. So I picked a really bad pitcher to compare. But if we go to, let's see, how many pitchers are there? So 183, if we go to 90, I guarantee you that actually I don't want to make any guarantees. I have a strong feeling that someone like Barrios will be much more similar in terms of XFIP versus Sierra. Excuse me. All right. 359 versus 352. 428. 439. 428 versus 432. So unless you're looking at unless you're looking at a more skilled pitcher, um, which is kind of silly to say, they're going to look very similar. And for the most part, most pitchers don't. They fall in between, the one standard deviation. That's 68% of the population. In a in a normal curve. I don't I don't know if you'd call this a normal curve. I probably would. But or normal distribution. So yeah, I think Sierra is fine, but I don't use it. It doesn't add anything for me. Um, one more thing that I want to show is that if you go to advanced down here, this is very important. So this is ERA minus, and look at that. It pops up with, well, I guess my video blocks it, but it says ERA adjusted for park and league where 100 is average and lower is better. Um, this is super nice if you want to, uh, look at, I don't know, Jose Barrios in 2017 has ERA minus versus Zach Wheeler's in 2021. You can make an apples to apples comparison. I hate that idiom. You can do that because it's adjusted for park and league, which is really important. Um, so you can do this for ERA, you can do this for FIP, you can do this for XFIP. You cannot do this for Sierra, which is a bummer. And again, that's part of the reason why I stopped using it. I feel like most people don't know about this or don't use it. It to be I find it to be helpful. I use it every now and then. But if you go to a leaderboard, just wherever, you can go to plus stats and you can find these three that I was talking about. So like if I wanted to be like since 2015, who has been the best starter by ERA? Um, I mean, you can do that with normal ERA, but this is nice because you can say, um, where's Mike Leake? Where's Mike Leake? Oh no, he's probably much better than this. Because you can say Chris Tillman has his ERA has been 28% above league average since 2015, or you can say Clayton Kershaw's ERA has been, oh math, 38% below, or I guess better than league average. So I think it's a really nice way to look at stats because league average, like the context for stats is constantly changing. The ball has been changing since, I don't know, 2018 or something like that. Strikeouts are increasing, the league is constantly changing, especially now. So I think it's super helpful. And then also like you can do home runs per nine and look at like how bad of a home run problem Drew Smiley has. He his home runs per nine is 46% above league average. Um, and aside from using percentiles, like counting all of the pitchers, going to the last page, counting them, subtracting by their rank, and finding their percentile, you can just go and you can say, Jordan Lyles home run per nine, his home runs per nine plus is 131. I can comfortably say that he has been well above average in terms of allowing home runs. Worse than Dylan Bundy and Matthew Boyd. So that's not very good. So yeah, I think that is how I will describe how to use ERA estimators. If you want a better description, um Chamberlain did, yes. Yeah, Alex Chamberlain did a video on them. That is a presentation that was actually prepared for, and I think he does a really good job of looking at which ones you use. Oh, yep, there's Kirkin's PCRA. It's very blurry, but he honestly does a super good job of explaining the foibles and positives of all of them. So that is ERA estimators. Um, which I feel, I feel pretty good about in terms of being able to describe. We'll see how 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 these go. Um, let's see. I would like to explain also the shortcomings of Statcast sliders because uh, we see so many people post pictures of Statcast sliders and be like, "Oh, this dude's dope." Um, I would say that Statcast sliders are good at, for the most part, showing who good athletes are. Which obviously makes sense because of like outs above average. Like you generally have to be a pretty good fielder to, or sorry, you have to be a pretty good athlete to be a good fielder. Obviously it looks at sprint speed. Obviously it's looking at like max exit velo, which is looking at raw power. Um, there is skill folded into all of this, but I would say for the most part, Statcast sliders are really looking at good athletes, and we know that good athletes are not always um, great baseball players. So, um, I couldn't think of an amazing example for a hitter. Um, I tried to find someone who maybe isn't the best athlete. Uh, this this kind of paints a picture of someone who's not a very good hitter. In terms of some of the metrics. Um, Michael Brantley does not walk a ton. Michael Brantley does not barrel the ball. I don't know that he ever did all that much, but he especially doesn't now because he's 34. Um, he doesn't impact the ball especially hard, but what this isn't accounting for, and it does in some ways, is that his batting average is in the 100th percentile, and his xWOB is in the 82nd percentile. Michael Brantley's obviously a very good hitter. Um, I've heard anecdotes. He's very cerebral. Um I think his recognition is pretty unparalleled. Or at least was at one point. It's his chase rate has gotten worse, but he doesn't whiff. I heard an anecdote about pitcher having to throw him 5 straight changeups because um which is obviously very weird. Because he's so sharp. But it doesn't think he's that great. And if you scroll down to his Statcast era, Woba, he's been an incredibly consistent hitter. Um, he doesn't strike out much and he doesn't walk all that much, and that's because he puts a lot of balls into play, which is obvious because the 3 outcomes are walks and strikeouts and balls in play. Um, except home runs, I guess, which don't count as a ball in play. But you get my point. Um, his barrel rate is really low, but he has very good bat control, which generally you can kind of capture here in like topped and under. You can compare like career averages to league average. Um, it's not reflected as so much here, so maybe I'm full of shit. But he doesn't pop the ball up all that much, and that's one way of knowing. Obviously it's just kind of a player type, but Sean K, Sean 5K shouts out. That's one way of knowing if a hitter has good bat control, like Joey Votto. Would be a good example. But um, back to kind of explaining the shortcomings of these different stats. Um, exit velo, I just don't use like ever. I use them in specific contexts. And I think it would be better for hitters and pitchers. Um, but exit velo does not account for launch angle, or it doesn't account for, um It doesn't account for anything except how hard the ball is coming off the bat. Um, you don't have to hit the ball 110 miles per hour every time you come up to the plate. And Michael Brantley doesn't do that. His max exit velo during the Statcast era is 110 miles per hour. What Michael Brantley does is pretty consistently hit the ball hard. I'm going to take another drink of water. Feel free to ask questions too. I feel so lonely when I do these streams because I can't play any music. It'll have to be royalty free. Okay. What I do like is that it shows max exit velo because that's a really nice way of just looking at raw power. Especially if you're looking at a young hitter like Evan White in 2020. It's a really nice way to have a small sample and be like, how can we project out this guy's power? Evan White has pretty good raw power. He hits the ball really hard. He just also cannot make contact. So they don't have they don't have max pitch velo, but those two, max exit velo and max, velocity for pitchers, are really good for projecting how hard is this guy going to throw, or could he throw, and how hard can he hit the ball. So then hard hit percentage. I really don't use it all except for in conjunction with other stats. So let me pull up hard hit percentage, like the baseball savant hard hit rate. So it's just a hard hit ball is one that's hit 95 miles per hour or higher. That's not super helpful. I mean, they show this. Hard hit balls are much better than weakly hit balls. But also, if I hit a ball hard at a launch angle of 100, that's an out. That shows that I could really, really hit a ball hard, but that's not a good outcome. Whereas hard hit rate, the what it's trying to tell you is that it is a good outcome. I hit the ball hard, but if I hit it 95 miles per hour at, a launch angle of 100, it's not a good outcome. And I don't think anyone would argue that it is. So if you have a hitter with a good hard hit rate and a bad sweet spot percentage, you're probably going to have a hitter that also doesn't have a very good barrel percentage, even if they do actually hit the ball hard, because they're not hitting it at optimal launch angles. So hard hit percentage, I don't use. I use dynamic hard hit percentage, which Chamberlain has done some work with that. But Connor Kirkin, again, who does very good work, did this at 6-man rotation before he left for the Astros. Actually, here's
stand of the year for the Rangers.
Sorry, that was loud. Joey Gallo. Yeah. So he hit this ball 107 miles per hour. That is a very hard hit ball. He hit it at 63 degrees. That's not a good, like, I could do a savant search right now, but my computer's being slow enough where I don't want to do that. I doubt. Did that fall in for a hit? I don't know if it did, but that's not a good outcome. That shows that Joey Gallo is very good at hitting the ball hard, but it doesn't it doesn't portend good results, which is what you want out of hard hit percentage. So, um, if you find Alex Chamberlain on Twitter at Dolph Haldhagen, you can find his pitcher leaderboard, which is in his bio, I believe. You can pull up. Don't use this for pitchers, by the way. But you can find dynamic hard hit percentage on his leaderboard under here. And obviously don't do this by pitch. You will find very good hitters under not Nick Ramirez. Let's see. Mike Zunino hit the ball hard more than anyone at optimal angles. That's what dynamic hard hit percentage is telling you. These are all very good hitters. Sano is a surprise for me. But I guess it makes sense because he essentially hits the ball really hard at optimal angles, but he also strikes out 40% of the time. Again, Gallo. These are all very good hitters. What dynamic hard hit percentage is looking at is it's looking at hard hit balls, but it's looking at if they're hard hit at specific angles, because some launch angles it's easier or harder to hit a ball hard. So Joey Gallo is probably one of very, very, very few hitters. Excuse me, I'm gonna burp again. Who can hit a ball at 63 degrees and also 107 miles per hour. Let's see. So I guess it's not. I guess it's not super surprising. It's really looking at. What it's really looking at is, was the ball actually hard hit? And so you will find a lot of raw power guys here. So that's what I often will use. And a lot. I almost showed Ty France for to show Statcast sliders. He's someone that shows up like shit under dynamic hard hit percentage, but he's a good hitter. But that's not what his calling card is. It's not hitting the shit out of the ball. So yeah, a lot of these guys like Aristides Aquino, yeah, you would expect. So that's what I use. It's not as handy, but that's what I use over hard hit percentage because it's lying to you. Dynamic hard hit percentage is not perfect, but it's much better. So yeah, you can find it on 6-man rotation. I'm trying to. Yeah. So here's a good way to show it is the green bar versus the green dotted line versus the black or not black. Where'd it go? Yellow? No. Whatever. Versus 100 or 95. It's you don't have to hit it as hard for it to be considered a hard hit ball, past 40 or past or negative 40 and past 60. So this is what regular hard hit percentage looks like, whereas it's more like this for dynamic hard hit rate. And you can see that these are very, very, very different things. So you can look into that. I will let you do that. I will not do it for you. See. Xwilba has drawbacks too. I think actually this is a perfect example. This is a perfect article to talk about this. Alex kind of took this work and tweaked hard hit rate. But instead of folding in a launch angle like Connor Kirkin, he folded in spray angle, which is like horizontal angle. So it's like, are you pulling the ball? Are you going oppo? Uh, there, actually, I can show this with the Trevor Story piece I wrote too. There's a relationship between hitting the ball hard and spray angle. So you can see here, if you want to hit the ball hard, you want to pull it. If you hit it the other way, it's much harder to hit the ball hard. Yeah, I forgot what it's called. Trevor Story has been the same hitter. Um, and a big reason why and I need to log in. All right, don't look at my password, y'all. Boy, remember me. There's my email. You can email me. I don't know what you want to email me, but you can. Here's that same graphic from his article. But it's different in terms of fly ball distance. If you pull the ball, that's good for hitting the ball hard, but it won't fly as hard. Or, fly as hard. It won't fly as far because there's a lot of side spin on the ball, whether you pull it or you go oppo. There's probably more if you go oppo, but that this is like a very we're really getting into the weeds here. But essentially, like a four-seam fastball, when you have direct backspin, you create Magnus force that propels the ball not up, but it keeps it from falling. It's the same thing when you hit a ball dead center if you're hitting it with topspin. So it flies far because of Magnus force. But when you're hitting it with a lot of side spin, that's why it's so hard to hit oppo home runs because A, you're not hitting it as hard, and B, it's not flying as far. Like very simple. So I really found a way to to take like to try and explain very simple things and getting excited about other things that help explain it. Um and making it more complex and confusing. But so Chamberlain took the same idea and said it is hard to hit balls hard the other way. Guys that do it probably if you control for spray angle, which he does here, actually have a lot more power than hard hit rate suggests, and even than dynamic hard hit rate suggests. I wonder they should probably fold the two in together. But I wrote about Trevor's story because he shows up. Um, he shows up in the 72nd percentile in terms of hard hit rate with Sprangle folded in, but he's below average when you just account for hard hit rate. So I think this is a good, albeit complex way of saying that hard hit rate doesn't think that Trevor Story hits the ball hard. Where's Brantley? Whereas hard hit rate actually gives Brantley more credit for his hard hit prowess than if you folded in his spray angle, which makes sense because he doesn't hit the ball all that hard all the time. He just, I'm sure he just hits a lot of burners and just has a lot of bat control. So it's really flawed in that way. And I guess I started talking about hard hit rate again, but X Woba, it doesn't take into account spray angle, which is a huge confound, I think. And I know that other people think. So like Bregman, I'm sure Bregman ranks like shit here. uh, if you account for spray angle, he hits the ball even less hard than his hard hit rate percentage. I should just say rate; it's easier. Suggests. But what Bregman does is he just hits not every, but he hits a lot of fly balls to his pull side, which, if you're looking here, you can hit the ball a little harder and it'll fly, farther than if you go oppo. And the Crawford boxes, I always want to call them the crawfish boxes, in Houston are very close. So he just hits a lot of wall scrapers, but it doesn't matter. Uh, and this would work in a lot of parks. It's not just because he's an Astro, although it does help him a lot. Um, that's a shortcoming of X Swoba is, you look at the Statcast game day feed while you're watching a game, and a home run happens, and you're like, oh, the expected batting average of that was, I don't know, keep burping. I don't know, 100, which is very low. But if it accounted for spray angle, I guarantee you it would be much higher. Probably, I don't know, it could be like 500. So all of these X stats have shortcomings because they're not accounting for players' ability um to control where their batted balls are going, and that's not true. Um, People or hitters, I guess, like Alex Bregman, show that you can control it. Look at his fly balls; they're all to his pull side. Let's go. Yeah, like 2019. Look at that. He has 2 home runs that are oppo, and I think he's only gotten better at this. But it's really just not good at accounting for guys like that. I always forget what barrel percentage, which one they use. But one thing that I'll say about barrel percentage is that, um, oh, there's a good article on this. Oh god. So these are just like articles that I really like and I will revisit from time to time. There's a really good Rotographs article on barrels and exit velocity and how they correlate with, right there, which Statcast measures best, correlate best with power metrics. Al Melchior did this, I think, with Alex Chamberlain. Yeah. It is extremely negligible, but there are 2 types of barrel rate, and I don't know if people even know that that's a thing, but if you're looking at measuring a player's power or raw power, uh, you're probably going to want to use barrels per batted ball event, but that's not very useful if you strike out 50% of the time. If you hit barrels, if you're in the 100th percentile in barrels, per batted ball event, but you strike out a ton, it's not going to matter as much as if you struck out 20% of the time and put balls into play more, because that means that the hitter with the better barrels per PA who strikes out less is putting more barrels into play. And so these have their own biases. Barrels per batted ball event, you're going to find the guys that hit the ball really hard because every batted ball that they hit is a barrel. But barrels per PA, you're finding the guys that hit barrels more often, which I find much more helpful unless I'm specifically looking at raw power or power. Here is why I don't use average exit velocity, because it does even worse than fly ball distance in terms of correlating with home runs per fly ball or raw power. This is really raw power is ISO. Um, or hard hit percentage, which we know is not a super helpful metric. So if you are going to use exit velo, uh, look at exit velo on fly balls and line drives. You do have to then account for, does this player hit a lot of fly balls and line drives? Does he hit not very many? But that's one thing that you can do. But yeah, like they these don't do very well. So barrels are misleading, and barrels can be noisy because I'm sure you can even see it with Bregman. Like from year to year, this isn't the worst, but like he goes from 50% to 21st percentile to 7th percentile to 28th percentile. That's really going from the 70th to 50th percentile. There's a lot of noise with any kind of stats, and some of it is good luck, some's bad luck. There are other factors. But one thing that I used to like to do is Bregman's really not a good example. Who hits the ball real hard? Yandy. I'm gonna drink more water. I don't know how people talk for extended periods of time. My mouth is so dry. Yandy. Oh, that's 20. Is a bad example. What's another buff dude? Fran Milreyes. Little buff boys. Little buff boys. This is what happens when I'm by myself for so long. Okay. Oh, whoops, I was still looking at what's his name. Was not a good example this year. Well, this sucks. Okay. I need to find a good example. A lot of the time, if you want to see if someone's barrel rate is legit, you can look at whether or not they hit the ball. This is one way that hard hit percentage is fine, is if they didn't hit the ball that hard very often, if their hard hit rate is low, but they hit a lot of barrels, that's kind of sketch. There aren't that many hitters that can do that. So I would argue that it makes it more likely that their barrel rate is kind of faulty. Who's a hitter that does? Who's broken out? I'll go find one. You people are no help. Let's go low. Adam Frazier's probably a good example. That dude hits the ball like JP Crawford. Oh, what'd I do? All right, here we go. Can I pull him up? Yeah. Actually, he's not a good example. Everyone just ignore me. I need to find someone a little more middling. Maybe Trent Grisham is a good example. Tyler O'Neill is probably not a good example because he's a beast now. Actually, let's go look at him after this. Trent Grisham. He's pretty good. I'm really bad at coming up with things like this on the spot. His barrel rate was better than his hard hit percentage, but yeah, let's look at Tyler O'Neill. I hope these streams are helpful. I'm trying to make things more accessible, but it's hard to explain things. Yeah, Tyler O'Neill. And this is the tough part is like a lot of guys with good hard hit percentages are going to have good barrel rates and vice versa. But that's definitely not always true. Um Suarez might be a good one. I bet he is a good one actually. I bet he didn't hit the ball that hard in 2019 and 2020. Yeah. Yeah, this might be it. Yeah. Let's go. Eugenio Suarez. In 2019, he barreled the ball 93rd percentile. He hit the ball hard in the 59th percentile. Um, and has seen himself decline since then. There might have been something else going on. I know he was hurt, but I guess I'm just trying to show that there are ways to use these metrics that are actually helpful. I thought he was going to be. He pulls the ball a ton. He hits a ton of, well, yeah, I'm pretty sure he hits a ton of old fly balls. Look at that. He pulls the ball so much and hits so many fly balls, but it hasn't really been working for him as of late. So, yeah, I think that's good for hitters. I will try and do some pitchers real quick. Don't want to make this the longest stream ever. Shane Bieber. Very good example of the shortcomings, especially of these Statcast sliders. Um, I want to see if anyone here can answer this, and it's a trick question. What is the best form of contact suppression? I will give you like 7 seconds to answer because this will be archived and like on YouTube, and otherwise I'll just be sitting here. But what form of contact suppression is the best? I'm going to give the answer in like 3 seconds. Okay. The best form of contact suppression or contact management is not giving up contact, is missing bats. Shane Bieber's, I don't know if you know this, but he's very good at missing bats. Um, let's see. 2021, 97th percentile in whiffs. It's very good. Hard hit percentage hates Shane Bieber because every time someone hits a ball off of Shane Bieber, it's pretty hard. I bet if you look at his pitch type stats, his barrel percentages they're pretty high. They get barreled fairly often. They get hit hard fairly often. Let's see. If you go to hard hit percentage, his career is 7% above league average. His Exo Bacon is 30 points above league average. His barrel percentage is almost 2 points above average. He gets hit hard. But he gets so many whiffs that it does not really matter. It's not ideal for him to, be in the 20th percentile in barrel percentage or the 48th, but these want you to believe that he gets hit really hard and that's a huge problem. And it's not, but it is it is overemphasized. I'm older than Shane Bieber. That is wild. Shane Bieber does not have a home run issue. I could look at his plus stats and see where he is relative to league average, but it's just he just doesn't. And his home run per fly ball rate is, I think that's probably worse than league average, which tracks. But it doesn't matter because where's his Ks and what? 40% of his outcomes are strikeouts and walks. So if a pitcher has, I don't know, an 18K percentage and a 5% walk rate, that's 23% of their outcomes. So Bieber, his outcomes are almost double of a lot of pitchers in terms of them ending in a strikeout or a walk. Um, so he doesn't allow that many batted balls into play. And actually, let me pull up a query that looks at ball and play percentage. And you get to see in live action how to make the query. Move these. Pitch percentage. So just like based on all of their pitches, how many are put into play? If Shane Bieber's not number one, I will quit my job. Shit. Oh. Sorry. Okay. I take that back. Mike Leake allows a lot of balls into play. Ah, shit. All right. Where's the Biebs at? What? All right. Let me take out 2018. That doesn't count. I could take out 2019 too, because it was kind of still a thing then. But better. You can see that Corbin Burns does not allow balls into play. Let's see if he has a hard hit issue. I say that with air quotes. I bet he does. I bet it's bad. I bet it's in like the 20th percentile. Actually, I was gonna say I bet it's not because he has a really good cutter. So yeah, the Statcast sliders want you to believe that Corbin Burns is a very good pitcher, and he is. So they got it right here. Okay, let me take it out one more time. Got a save face here, y'all. He also might not pop up in this query because the sample is kind of Robbie Ray. Oops, Robbie fucking Ray. Which makes sense, right? Him, Dylan Cease, Tyler Malley is a surprise for me, but whatever. Okay, I'll take that. He's very much not first, but Bieber, top 12. Does not matter that he gets hit hard as much as it would for Matthew Boyd. Gets hit hard, and it's an issue. Paddock means all not ideal. So that is a shortcoming of hard hit percentage. I should take this opportunity to plug Alexander Chase. Oops. Pitcher list. Chase does a lot of work looking at per plate appearance statistics. He's got some vendetta against per batted ball event. And other, no, wait, does he do per 9? He does per 9 sometimes, and he does per PA other times, but I don't know if he's written anything recently. But he does a lot of cool work at like looking at hard hit per plate appearance, which makes more sense for someone. No, it's per 9, which makes more sense for someone like Shane Bieber. He wrote these two, which are great. They're amazing. it just doesn't make sense to take hard hit percentage and compare Tyler Glasnow and Dallas Keuchel because this makes Glasnow look bad and he's not, and this makes Keuchel look good and he's not. Whereas if you use a per nine, Keuchel's barely above average by hard hit per nine, and Glasnow's much better. So if you have the means, I know that at one point Alexander Chase had a hard hit per nine leaderboard on Tableau. He probably still does. I don't use it as much anymore, but I guess this is humble brag, but like in my head, I just kind of account for these things. Unless I want to look specifically at that statistics, I just kind of say, okay, this guy gets hit really hard, but how many balls does he allow him to play? Um, yeah. So yeah, I might want to revisit pitchers later, but I think we did a good job of kind of explaining which ones are, I guess, the way that they're biased, both for pitchers and for hitters. We barely went over an hour. And yeah, so maybe some of these will need to be revisited at some point, but um hold on everyone, it's closing time. Don't leave. Y'all know how motherfucking time it is. My hands are super cold, so I'm not going to be able to play this well, but closing time. Thank y'all for watching or not watching if you're not here, but I will upload this onto YouTube. I will archive it so it's very easy to skip between if you just want to watch ERA estimators, if you just want to watch pitchers, Statcast sliders, or hitters. Feel free to let me know what's helpful and what's not because I'm here for you. My whole existence is for shit. What is it? Oh, my whole existence is for your amusement, and that's why I'm here for you. So thank y'all. I'm outie.